Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Series 8 of the Climate Pioneers Show. You will know by now that each series we focus on a different topic. And what better way to kick off our first series of 2025 than by interviewing experts from some of the UK's leading climate investors. I'll be asking them for what their reflections are on 2024, what their predictions are for the market in 2025, and what technologies they are most excited about investing in. I will also be asking for any advice that they would give to founders looking to raise this year. And today, for episode number 6, I am joined by Chloe Coates, a research and analysis lead at Zero Carbon Capital, a fund supporting companies working to solve the biggest challenges of decarbonisation. They make pre-seed and seed stage investments into ambitious teams building hard science solutions. And as well as her work at Zero Carbon Capital, Chloe has hosted sessions at The Drop, been featured by ClimateHack, and was a judge at the 2024 Global Challenge Lab Demo Day. Chloe, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks so much, Cherry. It's great to be here.
Thank you. So I gave a little bit of information there around Zero Carbon Capital, but are you happy to sort of expand upon that and explain more to us about Zero Carbon Capital as a fund and what your investment thesis is?
Yeah, sure. So we are a London-based fund, but we invest across Europe. We've got a £20 million fund at the moment, and this is Fund 2. And as you say, our thesis is really around investing in scientist entrepreneurs who have these breakthrough innovations that are solving some of the biggest challenges of decarbonisation. So our focus is really understanding the emissions reduction potential of the technology that they have, and also the requirement that it needs to be a breakthrough. But that can really be any sector, so any area that requires decarbonisation. So energy transition, industrial tech, transport, all the way through to food and ag. So we're kind of sector agnostic, but our focus is decarbonisation.
Love that. Okay. And talk us through what you saw in the market in 2024. First of all, how was it as a year for you as a fund? And then more broadly speaking, what were you seeing in the climate tech landscape across 2024?
Sure. So 2024 was for Zero Carbon was a really exciting year. So we're based in London, but we've got an office in Berlin, and Max, who's our man in Berlin, was started full-time at the start of 2024. So we've really expanded our presence in Europe, and that's been really exciting. We've had lots of successes in our portfolio, follow-on rounds, lots of exciting deployments of their technology, new customers, new hires, and lots of new investments as well. So we made 9 new investments last year with a whole load of technologies. The most recent one we actually just announced this morning. So that's Spark eFuels. They're in Germany, and they're developing load flexible eFuels production. We've also got added Aid Energy, who are developing thermal storage for flexible grids. XG3, who are decarbonising high temperature heat. Other ones, Cambridge Electric Cement. So they're a Cambridge spin out who are recycling cement using electric arc furnaces, which is kind of existing infrastructure for recycling steel. And cement is absolutely huge. It's responsible for between 7 and 8% of global emissions today. So it's a really important area to try and decarbonise, and Cambridge Electric's making a real dent in that, actually. So that's really exciting. We led their seed round. There are a few others that we can't announce just yet, but they'll be coming soon. So those are some examples of what we've added to the portfolio.
How exciting. And of those, you mentioned there that across 2024, some of the companies in your portfolio already had a great year. Are there a couple of those that you would particularly highlight? And what do you think? Because 2024 was still a tough market, right? And it sounds like you as a fund had a great year, but broadly speaking, for early stage climate investment, it was a challenging year. Which companies performed particularly well last year in your portfolio? And what do you think they had that helped them to overcome those sort of broader economic challenges that so many startups were facing last year?
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely the theme of of 2024 and 2023 that times were tougher than 2021 and 22 when capital was flowing. So it was certainly a harder environment than the previous 2 years.
Yeah.
But despite that, some of our portfolio companies did really well. So again, last week we just announced Iron8. Iron8 raised a $70 million Series A round. Anaphyte also raised a $10 million Series A round led by World Fund, and they're developing. So Iron8 developing kind of hybrid transformers to enable renewables integration on the grid and enable distributed energy resources. And Anaphyte have technology to enable fast charging of batteries. So two different areas there, and there are other fundraisers as well. And I think just they were super resilient, and they have these technologies that are really in demand and are really critical for the energy transition. Both of those two examples are areas. Grid technologies are really a really important topic that we're really seeing come to the fore. That our grids aren't fit for purpose, and so I think having it's kind of the timing. They were prescient a few years ago to realize that these were big problems, for the climate, but also for the economy and the energy system as a whole. And so I think, they've just been super resilient and super focused on developing that technology and getting it out to the field. So Iron8 have now got they've raised their Series A, but they've also got their first full-scale transformers that have been independently tested. They're being deployed in pilots, actually on the grids in Spain and Portugal. So just they're super hardworking, super resilient, and getting the success they deserve, really.
Yeah, and like you said, working on those really important problems that are not nice to have. These are, really existential issues for the energy network, for example.
Absolutely.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, and how are you finding? What are your thoughts around the market for early stage investment in 2025? What are you seeing? I appreciate it's really early days, but what are you sort of seeing as being the general mood out there for for fundraising and early stage investment?
Yeah, I think it's probably a continuation of what's gone before. So certainly in 2024 and already in 2025, we're seeing lots of pressure on grids and energy systems. So things like it's a lot in the news of data centers. Data centers looking for clean, firm power. Where are these kinds of deals that the big tech firms, so the Googles, the Amazons, the Microsofts, looking for clean power for training their models and the data centers that they're building. And so they're signing agreements with geothermal startups, nuclear startups. And so I think that area of clean firm power has been interesting and will continue to be interesting in 2025.
And that's been quite a US centric
Yeah.
Really to date, hasn't it? But I've been reading recently, I think it was a big AI conference in Paris at the beginning of this week, and they were talking about wanting to build a data center in France. And it feels like that. Are you seeing more demand for that in Europe and in the UK now?
So I think, yes. So I agree that it's definitely the data center problem specifically is mostly a US focused problem. And there are kind of a few reasons for that. The big tech companies out there, that's where they're building their data centers. There will be some in Europe as well. The US grid is also kind of particularly, I mean, maybe broken is a bit harsh, but the system there is almost particularly broken. They have such long interconnection queues. It's really hard for these data centers, for these new loads to connect to the grid. So that's a particularly acute issue there. But I think data centers are just kind of the most visible example of it. I think actually it's not just about data centers. It's just that people talk about AI and LLMs a lot. So that's kind of a symptom. But actually these issues of needing clean firm power for everything are occurring in grids around the world. Like even in Europe, we're seeing loads of solar deployment, loads of wind deployment. We now get more of our energy in Europe from wind and solar than we do from fossil fuels. But we're also seeing unusual things in the market, like many hours of negative pricing because we have too much supply of renewables and not enough demand at particular times, and then sometimes really high demand. So we're seeing these signals in the energy market that show that we kind of have reached a point now where there's a lot of renewables, but we need the technologies to fix that. And so these kind of advanced transformers, like the ones that Ionate are making, and that there are some others in the space as well, are kind of really exciting technologies to really enable like more penetration of renewables.
Yeah.
And I think that actually the data centers in a way offer a really exciting new kind of customer for them that isn't just the kind of big grid transmission distribution operators that have traditionally been really challenging customers. Now you have these big tech companies that aren't really price sensitive. They're happy to pay whatever, as long as they can get access to this power, and all the things that go around that kind of support grids are going to be, really important and a big theme going forward, I think, for us and for other investors too.
Yeah. And are there other parts of the market that you're particularly interested in, excited about this year? So clean energy being one, and this energy transition. Are there other key areas?
Yes, so many. So I think, energy transition well on its way, EVs well on its way. There are so many other problems that are completely unsolved. So, cement, steel, for the size of these problems, there are actually relatively few startups in this space. And there are kind of emerging solutions, but there hasn't been one winner emerging. So those are really exciting areas. New types of fertilizer, new types of kind of sustainable yield improvements for crops, really exciting. We've got a couple of companies in our portfolio there. So Net Zero Nitrogen and Climate Crop are kind of operating in that space. But again, food, such a big problem in terms of emissions, and so much more that could be done there. Even cow burps, enteric methane emissions, like, are there solutions to that? I think that's an area we'd be really excited about. And I think, coupled with that, actually thinking on the ag theme, an area that's really has been emerging more in 2024, and we're really hearing a lot more about, is the idea of adaptation. So not just reducing emissions, mitigation, but also, the world is warming. I think we experienced like 1.6 degrees of warming last year. It's not slowing down, and so these adaptation plays are also coming into people's consciousness a bit more now. And I think actually often they go hand in hand. So when you have so Net Zero Nitrogen, for example, are developing kind of microbial seed coatings that enable plants and these microbes to colonize the plant and enable the plants to fix nitrogen from the air, which means it reduces the amount of synthetic fertilizer that they need, reduces the emissions from producing fertilizer, and reduces nitrous oxide emissions that come from over-fertilization. So a really exciting kind of mitigation play, but it's also those traits enable them to be more drought resistant, or more tolerant to pests and things like that. So there are lots of properties that kind of, that lots of technologies where they might benefit both mitigation and adaptation as well. So another area. And I think that the third one that I would say that has been prevalent and will continue to be is kind of the question around kind of energy independence or material independence, and kind of geopolitics and climate, which, in other words, is basically how can we be less reliant on China for everything we need for the energy transition. So lots of things there.
Very interesting. And that's one actually nobody's mentioned yet, but is very topical and interesting.
yeah, loads more to discuss there, really, because I think it affects
Yeah,
every part of the economy and all our activities, really.
absolutely. And what's particularly important to you beyond the idea and the market opportunity? What's particularly important to you when making investments? I mean, what do you look for outside of the technology, but around the sort of team, the setup? Yeah, what does an investable prospect look like to you?
Yeah, so I think the technology is really important. Ultimately, we are pre-seed and seed investors in hard science, and that's really our edge to be, because we're all scientists in the team, that's like our edge to be able to find those breakthrough technologies. But of course, that's only one part of it. And you know, I guess like many of the other funds, it's all the other things that go into it. So things like team, do they have the ambition, the resilience? Are they vision aligned? You know, and do they have the chops to bring this technology to market? But all of the other components that go into decision making, like the business model, looking at the financials, all of those things go into our decision making process as well. What I would what's really important to us, and one thing that we try and quantify for every investment, and is really kind of a threshold and a gating mechanism, is to calculate the emissions reduction potential. So we need to see that there's a path to this kind of technology leading to an emissions reduction potential of 0.5 gigaton by 2050. So those are kind of calculations that we do before every investment, and we can't invest without believing that it can have that kind of impact.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And in the world of sort of hard science and deep tech investment, it's much, I suppose, harder for them to be able to demonstrate commercial traction at such an early stage,
yeah.
right? So what are your expectations there when you're investing, especially at, say, pre-seed? What do you expect them to be able to demonstrate from a traction perspective at that nascency?
Yeah, so what we're seeing is, certainly at pre-seed, it isn't our expectation that they would have customers yet, but there are, of course, lots of things they can do to prove that it is a problem that needs to be solved. Having customer conversations, having strong techno-economic analysis that suggests that whatever the baseline is, whether it's an incumbent technology or a competing emerging technology, does their solution lead to something that is lower cost, more performant, more efficient than anything else on the market? And then going forward, especially by Series A, I think there's definitely strong expectations at that point that there will be some sort of market traction. And it doesn't have to be customers, because often these things are too early TRL, but do you have offtake agreements? Do you have LOIs, MOUs? And really, yeah, those are really good things to show traction. But we do also have companies that already have traction at that pre-seed stage, and are already working with customers to trial their pilots. So just Exergy3, who we invested in, we led their pre-seed last year. They've got their shipping container delivered to a whiskey distillery, and they're kind of working with their first customer to trial their kind of industrial heat product. So that's really exciting. Yeah,
that's really exciting. Yeah, love that. And when a founder or a founding team approach you, what do you expect them to have in place? And so I suppose what I'm asking is, if there's founders out there that are interested in approaching you for investment, what advice would you give them? And what ducks do you expect them to have in a row before they open that conversation with you?
Yeah, great question. So I would say in an ideal world, you have a data room with all your information in there, and the founder's kind of fully prepared to talk to investors, and so all the information we might need, and we've got advice on this on our website actually. So we've written an article about, you know, what we look for in a data room, what you want in there, what makes it look good, what will impress investors. So our cards are on the table. So if they want more info, feel free to go to our website and take a look there. And we've also got resources there about what good techno-economic analysis looks like and stuff. So hopefully some useful resources. And you know, a lot of the stuff on there is conversations we've had with founders, you know, questions they ask us, what do you need to see, how can we do it, and so we try and make that public to kind of support them. So I would say that, like, a good data room, good strong techno-economic analysis, good communication is kind of really important and a real positive when you have good clear communication, I would say.
Yeah. And what about in the pitch? Because I guess I don't even hesitate to guess how many pitches you listen to in a week, a month. How can somebody really kind of cut through and stand out, I suppose, when pitching? What do you look for there? What's an immediate turn on versus immediate turn off?
I would say clarity is really important, especially in the first pitch, because the purpose of the first pitch is just to get another meeting. So we don't need to see everything. We just need to understand specifically what is the problem that you're solving. Like, who has that problem? What is that problem that you're solving, so that we can say, oh, I can see that's a really good problem, and I can see that you have a solution to it, but I just want to find out more. So that's kind of when that part is clear, I think then it's really easy for me and for other investors, I guess, to get on board and get excited about learning more about the problem. And that's the main part, I would say, especially in an initial pitch.
So not getting too bogged down in the how necessarily in that first pitch, but more this is a really big problem.
Yeah.
and this is our solution to it.
Yeah. But that even that can be quite high level to start with, but really making the problem very clear, I think, at first is a great start.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. And how can people get in touch with you and with the team at Zero Carbon Capital?
Yeah, well, happy for anyone to get in touch. We're on LinkedIn, we're on our website. You know, if you want to submit a pitch deck or a pitch, feel free to do it. We've got an entrepreneurs page on our website, and anyone can submit there. We review everything and we will always get back to you. But also feel free to just get in touch directly on LinkedIn, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, Claire, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And thank you for sharing all of that insight and advice to any founders that are out there listening today.